Ladies and gentlemen, let us pause for a moment and reflect on the remarkable age in which we live. Never before in the history of mankind has opportunity been so abundant, nor has knowledge been so freely available. We live in an age where comfort, security, and possibility are within reach of every man and woman willing to take them. And yet, the strangest paradox of all stands before us in this land of unparalleled wealth and freedom. In this golden age of human achievement, most people do not succeed. Picture, if you will, 100 young men and women at the very start of their lives, bright-eyed at the age of 25. They all dream of a better future. Each one, if asked, will declare with certainty, "Yes, I want to be successful. Yes, I want my life to matter." You can see it in their faces, the eagerness, the sparkle in their eyes, the energy that comes from believing the world is theirs to conquer. But now move the clock forward 40 years. Out of those 100, how many will truly succeed? Statistics reveal a shocking truth. Only a handful, about 5 out of that 100, will have achieved the kind of success they once dreamed about. The rest will fall short. Some will get by, some will struggle, and many will spend their final years dependent on others, wondering where it all went wrong. Why? Why do we start with hope, yet so many of us end in quiet disappointment? What happens to that fire of youth, that determination, that conviction that life will reward us richly? What force robs 95 out of every 100 men and women of the success that seemed so certain at the beginning? The answer, my friends, is not fate. It is not luck. It is not the economy, nor the times, nor the family into which one is born. The difference lies in mindset. More specifically, the mindset of the rare 5% who refuse to drift along with the crowd. Most people, without realizing it, live by imitation. They conform. They look around at what everyone else is doing and decide that must be the way. They trade in their dreams for routine, their courage for comfort, their imagination for conformity. They rise each morning not because they have a goal burning within them, but because that's what everyone does. But there is another kind of person, the few, the uncommon 5%. These men and women dare to set their own direction. They refuse to measure their lives against the crowd. Instead, they choose to think for themselves, to dream boldly, and to fix their minds on a goal worthy of pursuit. And because of this, their lives take on a completely different course. You see, success is not an accident. It is not a secret reserved for the fortunate few. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. It begins the moment a man or woman decides clearly and deliberately, "This is what I will do with my life," and then sets out upon that road. The 5% mindset is not about wealth alone. Though wealth may come, it is about direction, about purpose, about taking control of the most powerful instrument ever given to a human being, the mind. We become what we think about. Our lives, our fortunes, our destinies are shaped first in the quiet workshop of our thoughts. The 95% allow their minds to drift, to be filled with worry, with doubt, with whatever the world happens to throw at them. The 5% guard their thoughts, nurture their vision, and hold steadfastly to the picture of the life they are determined to build. The illusion of success. When we are young, life seems wide open. At 20 or 25, most men and women carry within themselves a vision of what their future will be. Ask them at that age if they want success, and the answer will always be yes. Their voices are confident, their eyes shine with possibility. Each one believes with a kind of certainty that they will arrive at a better tomorrow. Most of us confuse wishing with working, dreaming with directing, hoping with planning. They believe that time itself will deliver them to success as though the years alone will carry them upward like a tide. They never stop to ask the vital question, what precisely is success, and how will I reach it? The years pass. They work hard. They support families. They meet their obligations. But somewhere along the way, the dream grows dim. The goals that once stood so bright in their minds begin to fade into the background, replaced by routine. The fire that burned in their 20s cools by their 30s, and by their 40s, many are simply existing, no longer driven by vision, but carried along by habit. And so, we arrive at a tragic discovery. By the time they reach 65, only a small fraction, about 5%, can say they are truly successful, truly living the life they once dreamed. The rest, despite good intentions and honest labor, have fallen short. Why does this happen? It is not because they lacked intelligence. It is not because they lacked opportunity. It is not because they lacked time. Every one of them had the same 24 hours in a day, the same chance to learn, the same opportunity to direct their future. The difference is this. Most believe success would arrive on its own, like the changing of seasons without deliberate thought, without a chosen direction. They were wrong. Success is never an accident. It does not appear simply because we work hard, or because we wish for it, or because time has passed. Success is built. It is planned. It is deliberately created in the mind before it ever appears in the world. And the tragedy is that 95 out of every 100 never truly understand this until it is too late. This, my friends, is the illusion of success, the false belief that merely living, working, and waiting will one day bring the life we desire. But life does not work that way. Without purpose, without direction, the years drift by, and the dream slips silently through our fingers. The tragedy of conformity. If there is one single reason why the majority never taste true success, it is this. They conform. They live as though the safest path is to follow the crowd, to copy the actions of others, to blend in with the majority. And yet, that very majority is going nowhere. Look closely at the lives of most men and women. They rise each morning, not because they are drawn forward by a great purpose, but because it is what everyone else does. They work at jobs they never truly chose, buy things they were told they must have, and shape their lives according to patterns handed down by others. Their greatest fear is not failure, but standing apart, and so they surrender their individuality at the altar of acceptance. This, my friends, is the quiet tragedy of human life. That so many are born with imagination, with talent, with the capacity for greatness, yet spend their years imitating instead of creating, following instead of leading, existing instead of truly living. Why do people conform? It is not because they are incapable of thought, but because they do not dare to think for themselves. It is easier, they believe, to walk in the footprints of others than to cut a new path through the wilderness. The crowd provides comfort, a sense of belonging, and the illusion of safety. But comfort is a poor substitute for achievement, and safety often hides the greatest danger of all, the danger of a wasted life. History has proven that every breakthrough, every advancement, every great act of human progress has come not from the conformist, but from the individual who refused to be ruled by the opinion of the crowd. The men and women who dared to think differently, to act boldly, to break free from the ordinary. These are the ones who discovered new lands, built new industries, and inspired nations. The truth is plain. Conformity is the path of the 95%, and it leads only to mediocrity. Courage is the path of the 5%, and it leads to greatness. To conform is easy. To stand alone requires strength. But the one who chooses strength discovers that the crowd was never heading toward success in the first place. The forgotten power of the mind. If there is one treasure given to every man and woman at birth, it is the mind. Within it lies the power to design, to build, to create a destiny. And yet, strangely enough, it is the one gift most people never truly use. We employ our minds for small tasks, for daily duties, for solving problems of the moment. But the vast power of thought, the ability to shape the future, remains untapped. Everything you see in the world began first as a thought. The buildings we live in, the machines we ride in, the books we read, the music that stirs our hearts, all were once invisible ideas held in the mind of a single individual before they became reality. Thought is the seed from which every harvest of human progress has sprung, and what is true for nations and civilizations is equally true for the life of a single man or woman. Yet, while this truth stands plain before us, most people never realize it. They treat the mind as though it were a container to be filled with other people's opinions or a machine to handle the details of survival. They forget that the mind is not merely a servant, it is a master. It is the great compass of our lives, pointing us toward whatever vision we hold most often and most strongly. The thoughts we nurture day after day sink deep into the soil of the subconscious, and from that soil they grow into the circumstances of our lives. If we think fear, we live in fear. If we think failure, we walk toward failure. If we think with confidence, with courage, with a definite purpose, our lives bend inevitably toward that purpose. The tragedy is not that people are weak or untalented. The tragedy is that they spend their mental energy worrying, doubting, fearing, instead of directing that power toward a chosen goal. They forget that the mind, like fertile ground, will return whatever seed is planted, whether it be weeds of worry or crops of success. The 5% understand this. They guard their thoughts. As a farmer guards his fields, they sow only what they wish to harvest. And in time, the harvest always comes. The secret of goals. If there is a single secret that separates the 5% from the 95, it is this. The successful set goals and the unsuccessful do not. The difference sounds simple, even ordinary. Yet it makes all the difference between a life of drifting and a life of direction. Most people move through the years without a definite aim. They work, they earn, they spend, and they repeat the cycle. Endlessly, yet they have no clear destination. Imagine a ship leaving the harbor without a chart, without a compass, without a captain's plan. Where will it end up? At the mercy of the winds and the tides, drifting aimlessly until it runs aground. That, my friends, is the life of the 95%. The 5% live differently. They begin with a goal. They write it. They hold it before their minds. And they return to it daily. They do not simply wish for success. They define it. They decide precisely what they want, the kind of life they will live, the contribution they will make, the wealth, the health, the peace of mind, the service they will give. And once defined, that goal becomes a magnet, pulling them steadily forward through both calm seas and storms. Why is this so powerful? Because a goal gives direction to the mind. It channels thought, energy, and action toward a definite end. Without it, the mind scatters its power on 1,000 trivial concerns. With it, the mind becomes focused, steady, and unstoppable. The remarkable thing is this. It matters less what the goal is and more that it exists. A person with a small but definite aim will go farther than one with grand dreams and no direction. For the goal gives meaning to labor, courage to struggle, and patience to wait. The truth is timeless. A man becomes what he thinks about, but only if he first decides what to think about, and that decision is called a goal. The courage to think differently. If there is one quality that separates the few who succeed from the many who fail, it is not luck, nor chance, nor even talent. It is courage. The courage to think differently, to stand apart from the crowd, to follow a path of their own choosing. Conformity is easy. It feels safe to do what everyone else is doing, to believe what everyone else believes, to live as everyone else lives. But the price of conformity is mediocrity. 95 out of every 100 pay that price not because they must, but because they lack the bravery to step away. Success demands another kind of spirit. It demands the courage to say, I will not live by chance, but by choice. I will not accept the average, but aim for the best within me. I will not let the crowd decide my destiny. This courage is not loud nor reckless. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in conviction. To think differently is to risk criticism. It is to face doubt from others and at times from oneself. But the man or woman who dares to think independently discovers a great secret that most of the obstacles feared were illusions, and most of the crowd was lost because no one had the nerve to lead. The 5% are those who dared. They refused to let fear govern their minds. They thought for themselves, acted for themselves, and in doing so built lives the rest could only envy. Their courage was not the absence of fear. It was the mastery of it, the path of the 5%. So then, what is the path of the 5%? It is not a mystery, nor is it hidden. It is simple, though never easy. It begins with thought, it continues with discipline, and it ends with persistence. First, decide clearly what you want. No man ever reached a destination he did not first name. Write it, picture it, and keep it before your mind as a compass for your days. Second, direct your mind daily. Each morning, plant the seeds of purpose. Review your goals, speak them aloud, and let them govern your choices. Just as a farmer tends his fields, so must you tend your thoughts. Third, act with consistency. Small efforts repeated faithfully will do more than bursts of scattered energy. The 5% are not driven by moods or convenience. They act according to plan whether the day is bright or stormy. Fourth, persist through resistance. Obstacles will appear, doubts will whisper, and the crowd will mock. But success belongs to those who keep walking when others have turned back. Every step forward, no matter how small, is proof of victory over defeat. Finally, live with integrity. The rewards of success are not merely wealth or recognition, but the deep, unshakable peace of having lived true to your purpose. This, my friends, is the path of the 5%. Clear goals, directed thought, steady action, unyielding persistence, and integrity of spirit. It is not reserved for the gifted few. It is open to anyone who dares to walk it. And so, we arrive at the end of this message, but not the end of your journey. For life will go on after you leave this moment. Tomorrow will dawn, the hours will pass, and the years will move quickly. The question that remains is simple. Will you walk with the 95, or will you stand with the 5? The difference between the masses and the few is not in intelligence, not in opportunity, not in fortune. It lies in the courage to decide, the discipline to act, and the persistence to endure. It lies in the willingness to think for yourself, to set your course, and to remain faithful to it while others drift. No one can make this choice for you. Your parents cannot, your friends cannot, your employer cannot. It belongs to you alone. But understand this, the harvest of your life will be rich or poor, abundant or barren, depending entirely upon the seeds you choose to sow in your mind today, tomorrow, and every day after. The 5% are not superhuman. They are simply ordinary men and women who dared to live deliberately. They believed in a dream. They gave themselves to it wholly, and they persisted until it became real. Now the decision is before you to follow the crowd into the comfort of mediocrity or to rise alone, if necessary, into the higher ground of achievement. My friends, the choice is yours. Few will take this path, but for those who do, life will open wide its treasures, and the world will know them as the 5%.